Thanks for joining me on episode 595 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Rob Berger, author of Retire Before Mom and Dad. I encourage you to find your own journey to true financial freedom. And one way to be inspired to do that is by listening to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
On what is within your control, what do you say yes to, what do you say no to, that you get to control each and every day. And as you do that, you begin to feel more empowered, you begin to feel more capable, you begin to feel more and more like the choices you make actually matter because they actually do. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world. In today's episode about impacting the world through stewarding your treasures, I talk with you about how you need to balance today and tomorrow when it comes to your money, how it's not all about delayed gratification, but delayed gratification is important, and why working for the future may not feel important, but it always is. As we talk about stewarding your treasures, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without costing yourself an extra dime? Turns out you can. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show. If you enjoy the show when you're ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon. When it comes to money, one of the areas that people always seem to focus on is cutting expenses, saying no to themselves, delayed gratification. I've talked about those things before on this podcast as well, and they are important. This is an area where oftentimes you can make real, quick, immediate, big changes in how you're dealing with your money. It's one of those places where if you're struggling right now, if you've had some bad things happen, you definitely want to take a look at your expenses very, very, very carefully. But one of the things that I do when I work with clients is I've discovered that oftentimes they see a budget or a spending plan and they immediately think of the fact that it's going to put handcuffs on them, that it's going to make them have to say no to themselves. And it feels like a very negative thing. But the truth is, that's not what a spending plan does. Every single time a client eventually gets around to doing the spending plan and really making that commitment to doing it and having it as part of their life, they suddenly discover that they're freer than they were before. They're able to be more spontaneous than they were before. They're able to find new things to do with their money that they never believed that they would be able to do. They feel like they got a raise every single time. And the reason why is because as we do the spending plan, we don't focus on the things that you say no to. Instead, we focus on the things that we say yes to. See, the truth is that you always have an opportunity cost with money. There's always a decision. If you spend $1 in one place, then you can't turn around and spend that dollar in a different place. It's a choice. Every single dollar you spend is a choice about how you spend it. Every single dollar you save is a choice about how you save it. Every single dollar you give is a choice about how you give it. And so we're always having to balance today and the future. We're always having to look at what are we doing today and what do we want to do down the road? As far away as retirement, but even closer than that, looking at replacing a car or paying for insurance without having to worry about the sudden big bill that comes once a year, whether it's about doing things like taking a vacation and not having the guilt of wondering how you're going to pay for it when you get home and that worry the entire time you're on the trip. All of these things become decisions that you make with the dollars. All of these become things where you decide. No one else has to decide, but you decide, what is it I'm going to say yes to? What are the things I'm going to say yes to in my life, both for today as well as for the future? See, sure, it's about delaying gratification at times. It's about saying no to yourself for today so you can say yes to yourself in the future. But that's not the only focus. If all we ever focus on is what we say no to, the delayed part of gratification, then we don't want to stick to it. It becomes very frustrating. It becomes exhausting. It becomes a constant battle against yourself. But if you focus on the gratification part, you find the things that are really most important to you. What are the big changes that you want to make in your life? What are the massive things that have caused you stress? And how can you use money to get rid of them? What are the things that you've always wanted to give, or you've always wanted to take a vacation to Disney World or someplace else that's really big? What is it that you really want to say yes to? Is it retirement? Is it health? Is it enjoyment? All of these things are possible. What do you want to say yes to? Work those things into your plan. You put those on the budget first. Commit your time and your money to the things that are most valuable to you. And then all of a sudden you start seeing those things as the gratification part. Those things become the things that you're after. They become the things that you're saying yes to. And everything else on the list becomes much easier to recognize as a choice where saying no isn't as hard, because it's not really your primary focus. It's not really the thing that is the most important thing to you. It's somewhere down further on the list. One of the exercises we teach is how to do a priority list, because it helps us focus on that without fighting. See, working for the future is always important, because the truth is we've always got something in the future to work for. Even right now, when things are chaotic and crazy and a lot of people are feeling like the world is coming to an end, the truth is that's not true. If you tune in and look around, people will be panicking. It might be because of the price of oil changing and dropping, and oh my goodness, the price of oil is negative. It might be because of the political situation and someone's going to take advantage of this and take over the world. It might be because you feel that your liberties are being trampled on. It might be because you're worried about the situation in terms of health and safety. And honestly, for many of us, it's probably a little of all of those things. We're worried about the government. We're worried about health. We're worried about safety. We're worried about the economy. We're worried about all of these things. But the worry doesn't get you anywhere. The worry doesn't make a change. The worry doesn't allow you to focus on the things that you truly can control. See, that's what a spending plan helps you do. It helps you focus in on what is within your control. What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? That you get to control each and every day. And as you do that, you begin to feel more empowered. You begin to feel more capable. You begin to feel more and more like the choices you make actually matter, because they actually do. It isn't falsehood. It isn't, false feelings. It's real, because you begin to take control of the things that you can control of. Then you look forward and your future is looking better and better and better. And you do it without giving up the things that are most important to you. You do it by finding the things that you want to say yes to and letting go of the things that aren't that important. And when you do that, suddenly you find the way to win with your money in a way that you never have before. And that frees you to give more. That frees you to save more. That frees you to do all of the things that you've never been able to do with your money, because you've actually changed your relationship with money. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of treasures, you can sign up for our treasures tips by going to inspiredstewardship.com/treasures or text in the U.S. 44222 treasures tips. And we'll send you 5 weeks of our best tips on stewarding your treasures. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.